Hello, how are you, Attorney Tony Scott?
How you doing, Brother Holiday? Good to see you,
Yeah, good
sir.
to be seen as opposed to being viewed. You
Yes, sir.
I wanted to share with you. You have one of the best positions in your chapter right now.
What? Immediate pass
Yeah,
boxes.
that's it. Absolutely, that is the best positions you could ever have.
Yeah,
My best years in the frat were as an immediate pass. Yeah,
yeah. If they come looking for me, a whole lot of things have gone wrong.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, let's.
I am there as a consigliere if they need me. Otherwise, I get to come be out. Uh, I don't have the pressures that I had when I served at the front table. So
Yes,
to God be the glory.
I I do understand. Absolutely, I've been there.
Yes, sir.
Probably not nearly as long as you, but it didn't take long for me to realize, whoa, we can't do this for too long.
No, sir. No,
But
sir.
okay, so we're going to get started. And again, this is Omega Black Writers series, and we're doing an Instagram live with one of our writers. This will be our 10th event. We've done 9 previous events with 35 different writers who have spoken on 37 different books. We had a couple of our members who have written second books and came back, and I appreciate that. That just illustrates that they felt there was some value here, and that they also want to continue to give back here to the people that attend. So, without any further ado, Attorney Tony Scott, please introduce yourself and tell us about your book.
Sure. My name is Tony Scott. I appreciate that you keep adding the attorney on there, but for me, I'm just Tony Scott, a member of the Zeta Omega chapter of Omega Psi Phi Fraternity Incorporated. I am a Deuce, which you can see here. 2000 Deuce Club, 2010 Zeta Omega here in the 4th District. I live in the city of Cleveland, Ohio, was born and raised. Then went to USMC, United States Marine Corps, from 1990 to 1998. Came back, finished my undergraduate degree in English, my master's degree in public administration, and then my law degree in 2009. So I've been practicing a little bit more than 16 years. I practice in my 5 to 9 as a consultant under ISI Consulting Incorporated, LLC. So that's ISI from Proverbs 27:17.
Okay.
As iron sharpens iron, so shall a man sharpen the countenance of his friend. And that's my consulting model. That's my professional and personal development coaching model, that whatever I have belongs to my village, my clients, my friends, my networks, the boards I serve on, my bros, iron sharpens iron. And so in my 9 to 5, I am definitely double dipping, if you will. My 9 to 5, I'm an assistant director for the Department of Community Development for the city of Cleveland. Um, and that's me in a nutshell. My book is called Unlocking Potential. I have my handy dandy proof here that I always use. It's full of all kind of pin marks and highlights and sign here's and so forth and so on. But it's Unlocking Potential, Insights, Tips, and Strategies for Young Black Professionals. The idea, it's weird. I've been telling this story a lot lately, so I'm not used to talking this much, even as an attorney. But I started my writing journey somewhere around 2014, 2016, with something that had a lot of, it was fiction, but had a lot of autobiographical components to it. In full transparency, I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with all the different things that was triggering up, between childhood traumas, military traumas, imposter syndrome, career doubts, so forth and so on. And so I started shifting my attention into things that I understood better, talking about leadership, management, entrepreneurship, mentorship. And so that's when the impetus came for Unlocking Potential. It languished for probably about 7 to 8 years before I picked it back
Oh,
up.
okay.
The Lord gave me the gift of sight, to realize that I was spending a ridiculous amount of time trying to make it flow, all these different concepts to flow into some kind of logical order, So somewhere near 22, 23, 24, I finally got the gift of sight to realize just approach each topic individually. So you purchase the book, you'll see that it's not a book that you need to read from cover to cover, although I certainly wish everyone would. But the first chapter is adaptability. The second is appearance. Third is authenticity. Fourth is branding. So forth and so on, going into things such as health, imposter syndrome, management and leadership, military, networking. So each story, if you would, is not story per se. Each chapter is its own journey, its own struggle that you as the reader can choose what you need to pour into you and take from it. There's a companion workbook as well for those that like to indulge in the homework aspect. Um, and so yeah, that's it. I want to give more deference to you as the moderator, to as the question asker versus
No,
just
that's fine.
talking ad nauseum.
This this is your opportunity to let it roll.
Okay. Okay.
When we do our program
Sure.
next week, as
Sure.
we'll discuss, we're going to have to be a little bit more tighter on the answers. But this is the opportunity
Sure.
for you to
Sure.
tell us everything that's on your mind. So
Sure.
you mentioned that you had started with writing in one area and then migrated because of negative internal
Sure.
response to this particular journey. But what was it that inspired you to become a writer? I mean, what is it that put it on your heart to share
Hmm.
your stories?
Sure. Well, again, I mentioned as a undergraduate, my master, my undergraduate degree was in
Okay.
English. So I've always had an appreciation for reading and writing. I was a devout comic writer as a child. I I left honors classes in my junior year and shifted my attention to commercial arts, thinking that that was going to be my path to go be a artist and a contributing writer to Marvel Comics. Obviously, that was not my path, um, and so I veered back into the honors curriculum once I realized that what I thought was going to be a path to be a comic genius was really more about understanding graphic arts, typesetting, font setting, things of that nature. They've come to help me now because I actually wrote the cover, or excuse me, designed the cover
Okay.
of this book along with my wife's assistance, as well as the cover for my second book that I'm working on, which will come out in the fall. Um, so the skill set was still there, but the passion was still there, more so reading, writing, the English language, particularly as a first generation Black male. That wasn't something that was really enforced upon us. I had a teacher, shout out to Miss Regina Abernathy at Shaw High School in East Cleveland. She was the niece of Dr. Ralph Abernathy,
Okay.
who, as we know, was a right or left hand man, depending upon who you ask, to the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. So you can appreciate that her lineage, it was very important to them to talk to us as young men in East Cleveland, a very impoverished city, about not just what the literary canon was, but also what the Black canon was. The autobiography of Malcolm X, the Man Child in the Promised Land, Claude Brown, Invisible Man, uh, um, James Baldwin. So pouring into us, the students in that classroom, that literary canon. And so I had an appreciation for the spoken word as well as written word. I was a poet, used to do slams, perform,
Okay.
speech and debate. I am a trained trial attorney, although I don't spend any time in that space now. So I appreciate the value of being a good orator, being able to tell a good story. And so that transitioned into the time that I spent with mentees, that time that I spent with my young undergraduate bros. Shout out to Phi Sigma, shout out to Psi Gamma, shout out to Phi Theta, Cleveland State University, because those were chapters that were under us that I spent a lot of time pouring into those brothers during their processes and afterwards. So I found myself, long story short now, is that a lot of this was born out of what I was telling them. And I got tired of the redundancy in some spaces. You know, my one of my line names was Sarge, which as a Marine is not something that we aspire to, but the other branches do. So I tend to be a bit direct, a bit blunt in some of my communications. And so I would tell them, I'm a deuce. I ain't got more than twice for you. Anything after that, you're gonna start paying me. And that kind of became the basis of my philosophy, even with ISI Consulting. You know, I'll give it to you for free. I'll give you the blueprint. I'll give you a consultation, and I'll tell you what I'll do for you if you pay me. Now, the flip side to that is if that's not something that you're going to respect or you don't want to receive it, then I'm not going to keep giving it to you
No, I understand.
unless we have a commodified, you know, we can monetize it.
Right.
And so that's where it first started coming from. These pearls, if you would, that I was giving to the bros and to my mentees that weren't part of the D9 family. And it just started, you know, the pen just started going. The pen started going. Ultimately, the pen turned to the computer. You got it on Google Drive so that you're sitting in the car, you're sitting in the restroom, you're working on it, whatever. And then it just kept going. It just kept
Okay.
going. So that was the impetus. That was the impetus.
Okay. I appreciate the story. Okay. So
Yes, sir.
at the point that, and this is where it is the dark spaces for most people.
Okay.
You know, most kind of know that I got to write words on paper. I got to type
Mm-hmm.
on paper. They know that.
Mm-hmm.
But what they don't know is the process that you completed.
Mm-hmm.
Can you share with folks the journey from once you had a manuscript of some
Mm-hmm.
kind to the
Mm-hmm.
steps to actually getting it published?
Sure. Sure. I labored on the choice of whether to do self-publishing or to work with a publisher or some form of hybrid publishing. I ultimately chose to do self-publishing. This first book has been produced entirely through self-publishing. Working on two others with every intent on going self-publishing as well. To clarify what that
Oh,
means for anyone that doesn't know,
yeah.
you're doing everything. You are identifying the resources that you need to be successful. I personally worked with an editor after interviewing several editors, after talking to several of my bros that were also authors, getting their recommendations. And ultimately, what fit me, who I am as a person, my learning style, my engagement style, my budget, I landed with China Powell out of Powell Editorial out of Akron, Ohio. So shout out to China. And it was a great relationship. She was tough but fair, hard but fair, if you would. And in that space, you know, she had to do a lot of instead of getting stuck at 100%, striving for that 100% perfection, I knew I didn't have 100% perfected manuscript. So I turned it over to her, and she had to do what were a lot of elementary corrections for me. You know, as a lawyer, I understand the importance of references, footnotes, endnotes, citations. I didn't have them in there when I needed to. I wasn't tight with my formatting. There was inconsistencies in my grammar, in moving back and forth between a very colloquial conversation and a very rigid attorney speak. And she helped me find my voice in that and not just edit it, but also correct it. Not just edit it, but taught me. So now as I'm working on my second manuscript, China ain't gonna get as much money from me because I'm much more attentive to those things that she taught me. And we'll spend more time on concept and connecting the dots for the readers and not just grammatical punctuation and so forth and so on. While that process was going, again, I'd already designed my cover, but I didn't want to spend the time trying to format through either KDP or Ingram Sparks, both of which I'm using, and I'll touch on that in a moment.
Okay.
So I ventured ultimately onto Fiverr. So I use Fiverr, which is a service that you can hire people that you don't have any real relationship other than the app that you're using. So I used Fiverr for my full cover design, the front and back. I used Fiverr for my formatting once we moved past editing. I used Fiverr for my 3D mock-ups for this book as well as the subsequent ones. Excuse me, I apologize.
Right. It's
To the
fine.
extent that I want to already get the buzz out there. I already have cover designs for the second and the third book. So when I'm at events, when I'm at signings, there's a full billboard of what's coming soon to pique interest. It's also on my website, shameless plug, ISI Consulting LLC.com.
Oh,
I'll keep doing that periodically. Um,
what we're here for.
Yes, sir. So while she was doing that, I was then shifting to the business of, because part of what I do in my consulting is working with small businesses and
Okay.
nonprofits. That's the other side of ISI consulting, whereas the book is more a derivative of the personal and professional development piece. So the book feeds into that practice. So while she was working on that, I was working on the business pieces. I was learning about KDP, so that's Kindle Direct Publishing. I was learning about Ingram Sparks. Uh, what I learned in that space is that a lot of bookstores don't engage with KDP. This is me showing what I learned. This isn't me making a commentary on it, but they felt that Amazon had put the small bookstores out of business, so they tend to not engage with Amazon distribution. But conversely, Amazon doesn't allow you to do refunds. And so they don't like that also. They being small bookstores, Barnes and Noble, so forth. Ingram Sparks is another avenue, and there's others, but my research ultimately led me to these
Okay.
two. When you go through Ingram Sparks, they have relationships with bookstores such as Barnes and Noble, for example. So through your ISBN,
Right.
the code that identifies your specific product, they will put your book on a Barnes and Noble website, for example. They'll put you on, they'll give you accessibility to a plethora of bookstores that do have a relationship with English Sparks because they're not Amazon KDP and because they're not they will allow you to refund the product.
Oh,
And that's a whole nother conversation. But people are more receptive to that. And Amazon is also one of the sources that Ingram puts it through. The thing is from every research that I've had, and I'm still unproven on this, is that Amazon prioritizes things that are directly through KDP publishing, not things that it gets through Ingram Sparks through the back door.
yeah.
So that's why there's a value to both. I find Ingram has been quicker on sending me author copies that I can use when I'm at events and things of that nature. Amazon, I'm able to more easily distribute products directly from my page to people if I don't want to do the fulfillment piece on my own. So I'm starting to move into a space where I'm going to stop trying to control so much of the distribution, because although I make more money that way, it's more effort. And I did point out I have a 9 to 5, I have clients, I have a wife, children, grandchildren, dog, you know, and I still serve on several boards uh, in an actual officer role,
Okay.
elected or appointed. So I have to be more judicious about my time, and Amazon has a greater reach. But
Okay.
meanwhile, whenever I can, I'm trying to be out there. I have our event next week on the 27th. I have a event on the 25th. I have an event on the 22nd this Saturday, the 29th. So I'm out there with my author copies. But I'm going to pull back. That's all the marketing and the choice associated with being a self-published author. And I neglected to mention that I created ISI Publishing as a subsidiary of my consulting practice.
Okay.
So it's an entirely different business entity that owns the rights. And then I, in turn, pay myself a salary.
Okay.
Um, so it's all part of that business structure that comes from my experience as an entrepreneur, as well as my experience as an
Okay.
attorney. But that's the business piece. Again, I was going through all of that process, got my manuscript done, editing by China. That's when, again, I went to China Powell, my editor. I want to be clear if anyone came in late. I'm not talking about China.
If, right.
Uh,
Now, let me,
so
is
go
that
ahead, please.
Ms. Powell? That's what she does? That's her business. She's an editor by training and profession.
She's an editor as well as a coach, a publishing coach. So she was a resource for me as well as Dr. Jimmy Gray. Leadership in Action is his book. One of the bros, Jamil Carr,
Yeah,
Aaron Jeter,
yeah.
uh,
Names all sound
Ter-
familiar. They're all of my.
yep, Terrence Menifee, James Lassiter, all my bros that became mentors on this process.
Okay.
But no, she is an actual author, editor, and a writing coach and publishing consultant.
Oh,
Um,
let me just interject here.
yep, please.
Take a uh, again. This is Omega Black Writers Live. We are interviewing one of our writers who will be participating in our next event next Thursday, March 27th. This is attorney Tony Scott.
Mhm.
He is a proud member of the Omega Psi Phi Fraternity. He will be participating in our 10th event. He will be part of writers number 36, 37, and 38, and we'll put our numbers of books discussed up to 40. Uh, you will be able to ask your questions. We have a Q&A period. He will be part of a panel of 3 different individuals who will be participating next week. All, we have two PhDs and an attorney, so they know what they're talking about. In that regard, if you want to join us next week, just go on to Omega Black Writers on Facebook or Instagram. There's a link that you can register. There's no cost. Just register, fill out the information, and it will then ping you with a reminder, basically 7 days out, which will be tomorrow, and then 1 day in advance of the event. But the other benefit is uh, Attorney Scott has, as all the writers have donated 5 copies of their book and autographed copies that we will then have a drawing after the event, and we'll mail those out to the individuals who registered in advance and who attended. So I've mailed out, I don't know, 70 or 80 books around the country from Maine to California. So we'll do a random drawing, and then you may be one of our winners. So with that, you want to include an address. I won't show up at your house. And if you don't, and we have a number, I'll call you. If you get a call from a 702 number, that may very well be me. So let's get back to talking to our outstanding writer. And Attorney Scott, let's ask, in your opinion, and from the feedback that you've gotten, what do you feel is the biggest benefits people will get by buying your book?
Mhm. I appreciate that. One of the most important things to me in this book and in anything that I do is authenticity. I am greatly humbled and respectful of the fact that people attach the too often used term real to me, and I take it as a badge of honor. I'm going to be very direct. I'm blessed to have the academic experiences, the career journey that I have, but I'm still somebody from East Cleveland, Ohio, whose family at one point, welfare a couple of different times, the frosted flakes that got soggy in the white box. I'm going to tell you that story. Um, my own struggles with an imposter syndrome. I'm going to tell you that story. My struggles with mental health challenges, self confidence along the way, some that still periodically manifest. I'm going to tell you that story. And so just being very honest and transparent with people, being vulnerable, because I know that I'm within a safe space within myself. I know my village, I know my wife, I know my faith has me in a safe space. So I'm going to share where I've been, and then I'm at an age now, uh, and and a certain level of accomplishment, and I mean that as humbly as possible, no
Understood.
arrogance and narcissism, but I'm in a certain level of accomplishment that people are looking at me and need that honesty. And that's what you're going to get in this book. You know, the many of these things are things that I didn't know. And because I approached this very intentionally, I did a lot of research to expand my knowledge. So it isn't just Tony talking about what he knows or thinks he knows. You know, you'll get footnotes within this, you'll get resources. Even if you don't purchase the workbook, there's a wealth of things within there. My editor was like, "You sure you want to put all these?" Yes, I do. I want to let people be able to, again, Second Timothy, study and show yourself approved, show thyself approved. So just that realness, that transparency, that vulnerability about topics that we deal with. You know, this younger generation, God bless them, they're coming up in the midst of all this social media where everything is a click away.
Yeah.
So it makes it difficult, it makes it challenging to be more focused. You know, I had to explain to one of my managers the other day that we don't look at people who've only worked in a space 2 to 3 years as adversely as when we were coming up. The years of working 19 years at General Motors and Ford and then retiring, that's
Yeah.
gone. So these younger generations have so much exposure to so many things, and it's an intent, it's an attempt, excuse me, to try to give them tools in their tool belt that will help them navigate some of that exposure, navigate some of that challenges that they get that they may not have got from parents with pedigrees, parents with money, from villages that poured into them. So it's just trying to be very open and honest about my missteps, and prayerfully they can get something from it that'll help them be greater than what I and the people in my village, in my circle, in your village, in your circle have been able to accomplish.
Okay. All right. Appreciate that. Now let's tell everybody where they can purchase your book. You mentioned a lot of options that you
Sure.
do. So let's get specific. Where can people, and again, share the title of your book, please?
Of course, thank you. So the title of the book is Unlocking Potential: Insights, Tips, and Strategies for Young Black Professionals. It's by me, so Anthony W. Scott, Esquire. I'll show the cover again here, you know, so you're going to look for this beautifully designed book cover, if you will. It is in paperback and electronic form. The workbook is in paperback and electronic form. Now you can find the book on Amazon.com, again under the title Unlocking Potential: Insights, Tips, and Strategies for Young Black Professionals, under my name, Anthony W. Scott. You can also find it directly on my website, which is www.isiconsultingllc.com. So again, www.isiconsultingllc.com. So I'm perfectly fine if you get it from Amazon. If you get it from Amazon, whether you get it from me or Amazon, you read it, you love it, you're in the middle of it, I don't really want your review if you hate it. You can call me and personally if you hate it, but don't put that on Amazon. You'll mess up the sales. But put it out there on Amazon. Give it a review. That honestly helps my sales by drawing it to more people's attention, and try to get the word out to more Black professionals, young professionals of color, not just Black, brown, white, young, old. Anybody can get something out of it, but it was very intentional for me to speak to the audience I'm speaking to. But again, Amazon, on my personal website. The advantage to getting it from my website is I do offer bundles that you won't necessarily be able to get on Amazon because that's not how they package it. And also because the uh, electronic version of the workbook is a downloadable PDF, that's something you would have to get exclusively from me, that you'll get real time versus having to deal with any uh, shipping and handling. So again, Amazon or on my website, www.isiconsultingllc.com.
Okay. Now we're going to wrap up here shortly, but I did want to pursue something that you mentioned a couple of times, your workbook. You just give us a overview of the kinds of exercises that people will go through uh, using your workbook.
Sure. I'm actually trying to grab a copy of it. It still has the same design, and I purposely, whereas most workbooks are larger, I actually wanted it to be smaller, so it's a little bit thicker than your standard workbook. But I wanted it smaller so that way this can actually be a tool that you maintain and that you can. It's easy to carry on your person. Toss it in your pocket, toss it in your book bags where I just pulled it from. And there's a corresponding chapter in the workbook to each chapter within the
Okay.
book. So it's asking you, for example, in appearance, it's asking you about what is your style? What are accessories that you can maybe bring to your workplace that show your individuality, but don't become overly cumbersome to where it becomes distracting from your presence in the workspace.
Right.
You know, we can talk about mentorship. Who are your mentors, sponsors? Who are your sponsors? What can you do to entice someone to become your mentor? What kind of engagement do you need to have with that person as far as building a sustainable relationship? And since you've read the book to understand the difference between a mentor and a sponsor, there's different activities in how to engage a sponsor. If anyone doesn't know, long story short, mentor is a relationship you develop. You're doing coffee, you're doing breakfast, you're doing regular strategic check-ins with each other. There's that reciprocal relationship. A sponsor, you won't necessarily have that level of consistent engagement with connectivity. A sponsor is someone that the best thing that you can look for them is they're going to say your name in the rooms that you're not in. They're going to say, reach out to Tony Scott, reach out to Jerry Smith, reach out to Brother Holiday. You want to understand how to navigate the publishing space. That's who you talk to. He's done it all, seen it all. He can tell you what you need to know. And then that in turn creates an opportunity for Brother Holiday to be able to get that phone call and possibly have that client, if you are in that space, to want a client to navigate through that process. So this kind of engagement, the workbook takes you beyond just the thought and actually compels you to move forward into an action. That's what you always want, right? You want someone to act, to be prompted to do something, to think something, to feel something. And so that's what the workbook will help guide you
Okay.
through. The book by itself obviously is a resource. The workbook is there for those that are going to do the homework, that are going to want to take their experience a little bit further and to be interactive with what they're learning within the book.
Okay. Outstanding. And we're going to wrap up with this. Is something I always ask each writer at this point. Why should people tune in next week, and what basically motivated you to participate?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, I definitely want to give a shout out to you, and I want to give a shout out to Brother Tommy Smith. Tommy's 2023 Q. So shout out to Tommy, and that's who helped facilitate our connection. But honestly, it's an exposure, and I don't mean an exposure in just getting out there anywhere, but it's about being strategic. I take great pride in being an Omega. I take great pride in bucking the stereotypes that some people have on us. You know, we work hard, but we play hard, and they go in tandem. I'm a Q, but I'm an Omega man, and that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get realness. You're gonna get a very audacious interview. I'm gonna be me. You know, I'm gonna say I'm gonna say what I'm gonna say. You know, I'm at that age where I'm telling kids to get off my lawn, so I'm not gonna temper my speech much. Uh, and that's what you're gonna get. You're not gonna get someone that came from an Ivy League background that's regurgitating things that they read. Nah, you're gonna get the guy who had hand-me-downs, who had shoes from the grocery store, that made the mistakes, that didn't show the best judgment, but by God's grace and a village is where I am to actually be able to put words onto paper to tell you how I've done it and prayerfully motivate you give you some insights, some tips, and some strategies that you can do that and better. So that's why you need to tap in. You know, myself, my fellow bros, holidays, moderation, and narration is going to make it an insightful, exciting experience. So y'all need to tune
Okay.
in. That's it.
Hey,
Real.
sounds good. All right, Brother Smith, Brother Scott,
That
thank you so much.
too. I'm bipolar in there somewhere, so that might
Well,
be the other name.
you said Thomas Smith, and he's actually out
Yep.
there KRS. So
Yeah. I didn't know he was KRS now, so okay.
yeah, if I was him, I wouldn't be bragging about it either.
I served in that role for 2 terms, so
That's that. No, no, they couldn't get me for that one.
hey,
But I've done my share of other things for real. But okay, I appreciate it. We will be talking, obviously,
yes,
and looking
sir.
forward. And if anybody wants to reach out to Attorney Scott, you can send us a just message through our Instagram or Facebook page. We'll pass those on
Mm-hmm.
expeditiously within 24, 48 hours. If you have questions about China or his editor
Mm-hmm.
or fiber, but all the writers have their own roads and avenues that they've used. So there's a lot of resources that you'll be able to get from coming in and viewing with us on next Thursday. Okay, sir, I know it's late. You have a good night, and I
Thank
appreciate
you.
the time. And it's gone well, and you take care. And we're going to have a great time next week.
Yes, sir. I appreciate you. And again, shout out to you for having this vision to create this platform and the ongoing success, getting ready to approach 40 different authors
Yeah.
on the session. So thank you for creating this forum for us to be able to get our work out to a larger population than what we have. You're doing God's work. So in sincerity, thank you, bro.
Well, I hope so. I need the help.
Yes, sir.
All right,
Yes,
you
sir.
have a good night.
All
Uh,
right.
I copy the video to you very shortly. All right.
All right.
Good night,
Thank you,
brother.
bro.
Take care. Bye bye.